With the UK entering countrywide lockdown, and also a lot of countries across Europe already suffering the same measures, it means there's a lot of gamers sitting around twiddling their thumbs. Due to social distancing, we're unable to meet up in groups or in societies to refight the battles that we want to. So this means that we're going to have to rethink our gaming habits for the time being. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about solo wargaming and just give you my take on it. These are just some ideas that may give you a bit of inspiration to go about playing your own solo games while we're all locked down. This is not going to be a comprehensive guide. I wouldn't even have time for that. But there's plenty of other societies and organisations that already do this, such as the Solo Wargamers Association. I'll put their links in the description of the video below. I also wrote a blog recently about this. Covers a couple more of the games, board games and things that you can play while sat in your house. I mean, whatever you take away from this video and from those links, it's got to be a lot better than actually just sitting down watching daytime TV all day. Most wargamers will play as part of a group, and the usual way of playing is against a human opponent. So solo wargaming is generally a massive departure from what we're used to. But all it takes is a little bit of rethinking. When you're playing a game, most of us are just concentrating on winning, and most of your effort is focused on that outcome. With solo wargaming, you get a different aspect. You can actually tell a narrative story about the game that you're playing. For example, will your men actually be able to clear their way through this village? You know, there's a million stories out there waiting to be told by your tiny men. But we're getting ahead of ourselves first of all, so let's just start at the beginning with what we need for solo wargaming. The most obvious and the first point is that you will need two opposing armies. As most wargamers have got probably multiple armies, this shouldn't be a problem. But you may find that you only have the armies from one single side of a particular conflict. So in this case, you can either proxy some of the figures that you already have for the enemy, or alternatively set the game in a civil war or a rebellion. You know, there's plenty of examples from history, for example, where soldiers have either fought against their own sides or used captured equipment against its former owners. You can also make your own figures from card or paper. You can find some of the many paper figures that have been put online. For instance, Peter's Paper Soldiers are perfect for this. I'll put a link to their website in the description below. But there's many more. Just simply Google for Paper Soldiers and you'll find tons of them. Simply print out the sheets, cut them out, and you've got an instant army. And even cheaper ways to make your own from paintings or pictures that you can find on the net. Again, just print them out as individual pieces, cut them out, and then there you go, you've got an army. The same goes for terrain. If you have none, cut out green paper for trees. Brown paper and blue paper cut into strips is instant roads and rivers. I mean, it doesn't have to look amazing. You know, there's only you playing, so there's only you that needs to see it. But how do you actually go about solo gaming? There's a lot of games that play in the I go, you go style, which means basically one player taking a turn, doing all their moving and firing, and then the second player taking their turn and moving all their units and firing. Probably the best example of this is Warhammer 40k. There's plenty of other games that are in the I go, you go style as well though, and these are actually perfect for solo gaming. You basically set up your figures, set up your board, and then literally just take your moves one at a time, trying your best as the commander of that particular side at that time, and just doing as best you can with them. You'll find that you play the game pretty fairly and make the best moves that you can at the time. Some of the I go, you go games that I have are things like this: Rapid Fire. This is for the Second World War. I also have Gaslands, which is for post-apocalyptic race car driving, and Lion Rampant. I mean, these are only, just an example of some of these. This is the medieval set. In Rapid Fire, it's very similar to Warhammer 40k, where you will move all of your pieces from your side, and then the enemy generally doesn't really get to do much apart from maybe reactive fire at you if they spot your pieces moving in front of you, and then the opponent will take their turn. So this, as I say, is perfect for that kind of solo wargaming. Very simple, very easy. Gaslands, on the other hand, each player will take a turn, but it's also determined by how fast you're going and what gear your car is in. So a car going in gear 6 will be taking a lot more moves than a car in, say, gear 3. But again, this is perfect for solo wargaming because you just work your way down the gears and just play each of these pieces as they would be normally played. And then with Lion Rampant, This has a very slightly different I Go You Go system, in that you have to activate your units when you're when you're playing them, and they have a level of activation which you have to beat with two dice. So if you want to move or fire, you have to see if the unit is going to do it, and if they do, then you get to activate them. If they don't, then your turn ends and it goes straight to your opponents. So again, absolutely perfect for solo wargaming, because it introduces a slight amount of fog of war. You're not really sure if the units are going to do exactly as you'd want them to. I Go You Go is one way of playing the games, but there's many other styles of activation. The Two Fat Lardies, for instance, they have quite a few interesting different activation rules in their games. So in I Ain't Been Shot Mum and in Through the Mud and Blood, they use card activations for each individual unit. Each unit has a card, and you draw a card at the start of the turn, and that basically tells you which unit you're able to activate. Now this is absolutely perfect for solo wargaming, because it means that you have to think on your feet. There's a real friction factor going on within the game itself, and as a solo player it leaves you in a position to have to deal with things as they happen almost in real time. It's like, you know, you're reacting to what's happening on the board. So you can't really have an overall plan, and you can't really, you know, you're not going to know what your opponent's plan is, your opponent's inverted commas plan is, because you don't know what the next card is going to be. You know, no plan ever survives contact with the enemy anyway. In Chain of Command, also by the Two Fat Lardies, you have to activate by rolling dice. So you've got no idea which units you're going to activate or which your opponent is going to activate for the next turn. This uncertainty really plays to the heart of the game, and you have to think in real time when you're playing it, even if you're playing against a normal human opponent. So it works pretty well for a solo game. Also, this has the effect of concentrating the action on the field in a cinematic theme, and it just kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the narrative idea, because the action will take place in one particular area, while some areas of the board may get a little bit quieter while you're trying to achieve a particular objective. It really, you know, brings out that story of the game itself. I mean, the other great thing about the Two Fat Lardies is that they have a website that is well served. It's full of PDF downloads that you can download all of their rules, so you don't have to have them sent to you during the lockdown. You can print them out at your own leisure. They also have plenty of supplements for the games, so there's tons and tons of campaign rules and all sorts of extra bits and pieces that you want to put in to these games. Again, links will be in the description. Just check those out. So playing a basic war game can be quite simple, but what about games that have got random events or hidden movements? Obviously in some games there may be ambush elements that your opponent doesn't know about. These issues can quite easily be solved though, just by creating either a random table of events or a deck of cards which are activated, say when the enemy unit is activated. So, you know, if a unit were to move close to a building, you could pull out a card and see if there was anything in it. Then you simply place the enemy units on the tabletop if the card or the table that you've rolled on indicates something is there. So if you treat each piece of scenery as though it's a hiding place potentially for enemy troops, it makes your moves more cautious as you're playing the game as you approach these particular areas. I mean, this could really be as simple as rolling 1d6 and saying 1 to 3 there's nothing there, 4 is a sniper, a 5 is an anti-tank gun, or a 6 is an infantry section. Also, by adding more options and larger dice or a set of cards, you can actually play a patrol style game where your force is moving through a village, for instance, or moving through the board and having to deal with each threat as they appear and encounter them, either neutralising them or from moving past. The same can be done with hidden movement tokens. You just create a table that includes all of your force options, which you then roll on when the token is revealed. You know, this is a slightly more random way of dealing with hidden movements, but by adding dummy tokens to the mix, you can also create the element of surprise. So a typical table, for instance, could be you roll a 1d6. On a 1 you get a dummy, and you maybe have 3 of those in your army. On a 2 you get an infantry section on the table, a 3 is a headquarters section, a 4 an anti-tank gun, 5 is a tank company, and 6 is a mortar company. You know, in this table I'm talking about, you may only have 1 tank company, so the next time that you roll a 5, you replace it with an infantry section, for instance. I'm using here, you know, typical Second World War units, but they can easily replace any of these with anything that you're using from any particular period, theatre, or any aspect of the game that you're playing. In the case of hidden enemies, a card activation system is going to work even better for randomization, because you're not then just restricted to the faces of the dice, and also, you know, re-roll the issues of re-rolling the same number. You're better off creating a deck with each individual unit marked on the face of the card, or just using a normal set of cards with the face value replaced with a particular unit that you want to play in the game. When the card is drawn, you place that unit on the tabletop, and then that card is removed from the deck, ensuring that you're not going to play it, you're not going to draw it again in the future. A different alternative is to use cards to actually plot the opposing force's movements. There's some games, such as Wings of Glory, where some players have actually created sets of solo wargaming cards for movement. I'll link those in the description as well. These react to the player's movements. It takes a little bit more work, but this could actually, you know, these orders could be a lot even simpler, as just saying something like move forward until contact with the enemy, hold the position, finding cover within 12 inches, or move towards the church. Each card would then be dealt out to the enemy units, and then revealed when it's that unit's turn to act. It's a very simple form of artificial intelligence, and it allows you to play with some sense of the unknown, especially if you're using it with hidden units. So you could reveal a unit and then reveal their orders. So, you know, you're really mixing it up for yourself and just making it a little bit more interesting than knowing exactly where these units are, what the units are, and where they're going to be. As I said, one of the beauties of solo wargaming is the ability to create a narrative out of the game itself. If you have a campaign following a particular unit, for example, you can chart the successes and the failures as they go along through those games. You're not always playing to win. The card-driven system can easily stretch to actually creating different scenarios. So you can make a deck of scenario cards. For instance, you know, hold the bridge, scout the village, advance to contact, that kind of thing. Then you set up your table in accordance to that scenario card. Also, you can make a similar system to randomise the enemy units that you're actually going to face, and you have a perfectly playable mini-campaign to work through. Having done it once, play it again, see what the different options are. You know, either use the same scenario as you've already done, or randomise them again, and just see how well your unit does, and, you know, how many medals they're going to get at the end of it. Solo gaming really does allow you to test the limits of gaming. You can really unbalance the opposing forces, for example, just to see how long one survives. You know, the many against the few. You know, think of Zulu, the film Zulu. In our usual gaming experiences, this may not be such a fun experience for the person using the underpowered side. However, in solo gaming, you're able to test these things out without people getting upset about that they lost or that the game was unfair towards them. You know, it really does open up a lot more possibilities about testing new grounds just in gaming. Playing solo games also can be as simple or as complex as you want them to be. The nice thing is you don't have to remember every single rule in the complex game. You can spend as long as you like referring back to the rules, clarifying it, and then that's not interrupting the game for any other players. You're also not restricted by having to gather your usual group together, or even having a finite amount of time to play the game in, say, an evening or whatever. A single game can take place over days. If you're working from home, which a lot of us are doing, you can take a move during your lunch break. You know, leave the board in place if you're able to. Use it as a distraction from being locked down. There's no restriction on getting it finished or packed away as soon as you have to. You can rewind the game a few turns and just try something different. You know, try different tactics, see if something else works. Nobody's going to then complain that you're cheating. As I said, this is a very brief outline of just some of the options you have as a solo wargamer. I've talked about online gaming as well a little bit more on my blog, with some good solo board games that you can play. Again, links in the description. But for now, I'll wrap this up here and just ask you basically to have a go at solo wargaming in the time that we've got now. We may be stuck indoors for some time to come, so you may as well try it out. Take something away from this, I hope, and I do hope you enjoyed watching the video. Please stay safe and happy gaming.